Hello.
People boarded the plane from New York to Los Angeles with the usual hustle and bustle. Some were in a hurry to get to their seats. Others were nervously looking for the luggage compartment. It was a typical flight for many passengers, but not for one of them. A man in a military uniform appeared among the crowd, tall, strongly built, with a weathered face that spoke of the hardships he had experienced. He was a black veteran who dreamed of this flight as an opportunity to return to his family, whom he had not seen for many years. The man was holding a small, worn-out bag. His movements were restrained, and his eyes were alert, like those of someone who is used to danger. Despite this, his posture radiated dignity and pride. The passengers stopped to let him pass, some of them giving him looks of admiration, while others simply ignored him. When the veteran approached the stewardess at the entrance, he handed her his ticket. It was a first-class seat, a luxury he could afford only once in his life. He had saved money specifically for this flight to allow himself to feel comfortable for once after years of service. But the stewardess, a younger woman with a professional smile that quickly changed to a disdainful look, glanced at the ticket, then at the man. Her tone was cold and sharp. "This is a first-class seat. Are you sure this is your ticket?" The veteran, without changing his expression, replied calmly, "Yes, this is my ticket. We have to check it." "Wait here," she said, turning to her computer. Other passengers began to stare, hearing the tension in her voice. The scene was becoming increasingly awkward. The man remained in his seat, showing no emotion, but it was clear that he felt humiliated. The passengers around him whispered, and the stewardess seemed to be in no hurry to resolve the situation. Her behavior showed not only doubt, but also clear disdain. This scene was observed by Keanu Reeves, who had already taken his seat in first class. He was dressed simply, as always, jeans, a t-shirt, and a backpack that looked so ordinary that no one would have thought he was one of the most famous actors in the world. Keanu, focused on the book he was reading, quickly noticed what was happening. He saw the veteran waiting calmly, the stewardess openly showing doubt about his right to be here. It didn't seem fair, and Keanu knew he had to intervene. He put the book down, got up, and walked over to the stewardess. "What's the problem?" he asked calmly. Her face changed visibly when she realized who was standing in front of her. "We're checking this passenger's ticket," she said, trying to keep her tone professional. Keanu looked at the veteran and said, "Maybe we won't cause any problems. If it's a seat issue, I can give up mine." The stewardess looked confused, but in the end she couldn't object. Keanu turned to the veteran, smiled, and said, "Sit down. This is your seat." The veteran refused at first, but Keanu insisted, gesturing to the seat. The passengers watching began to applaud. The veteran finally sat down in first class, and Keanu returned to economy class. Sitting by the window, Keanu opened a book, trying to remain inconspicuous. But this time, he was not able to escape attention. His neighbor, a middle-aged man sitting next to him, smiled kindly and said, "That was incredible." Keanu nodded, replying briefly, "It was necessary." The passengers around him chattered quietly, and many were impressed not only by his gesture, but also by how calmly he had done it. The veteran, now sitting in first class, could finally rest, but his story was just beginning. He still had a long flight ahead of him, and the conversation between him and Keanu was going to impress everyone who heard it. After Keanu gave up his seat, the atmosphere on board changed. Passengers continued to discuss the incident, and many felt mixed emotions: respect for the actor, sympathy for the veteran, and disappointment in the flight attendant. The veteran was finally able to relax in a comfortable first-class seat, but his thoughts were far from comfortable. He recalled the path that had brought him here and the events that had left a deep mark on his life. The calm posture hid years of service filled with dangers and trials. The veteran participated in several combat missions where he not only fulfilled his duties, but also saved the lives of his comrades. His last mission was particularly challenging. During an enemy ambush, he took command and helped his unit get out of the danger zone. This heroic act cost him his health. He was seriously injured and required long-term treatment. Returning to civilian life was no less difficult. The veteran faced the indifference of the society, which often did not notice the problems of those who gave their strength and health to serve the country. He had to start from scratch, find a job, adapt to a new lifestyle, overcome physical pain and psychological trauma. Despite this, he did not lose his dignity and continued to fight. His dream of seeing his family seemed like something far away, but now, sitting in the first grade, he felt that he had taken an important step towards its realization. His heart was filled with gratitude to Keanu for this simple but meaningful act. He knew that to many people this gesture might seem insignificant, but to him it was a reminder that humanity still exists. Meanwhile, Keanu, sitting in economy class, did not pay attention to what was happening around him. He was deep in thought, assessing the situation. It was obvious to him that this veteran had been through much more than he could have imagined. Although he did not know the details, he had no doubt that this man deserved respect and support. During the flight attendant who caused the conflict looked tense. She was aware that her behavior was being criticized by the passengers. Her actions, although not accompanied by direct aggression, showed a disdain that was now visible to everyone. She tried to keep her demeanor professional, but her movements were nervous and her eyes were evasive. The economy class passengers who were now sitting next to Keanu tried to approach him. Some of them wanted to thank him for his actions. Others just wanted to shake his hand or take a photo. But Keanu remained modest and polite, avoiding unnecessary attention. For him, it was not an opportunity for popularity, but a natural decision dictated by his principles. As the plane approached Los Angeles, the atmosphere on board changed. People began to realize that they were witnessing something more than a regular flight. This flight reminded us how important it is to show kindness even in small things. The veteran was preparing to land, thinking about meeting his family, and Keanu remained in his usual role, a humble hero whose actions speak louder than words. The plane landed smoothly at Los Angeles Airport. One by one, the passengers came to the gate, grateful for the successful flight. The atmosphere on board, which had been tense at first, was now calmer. The veteran, whom Keanu Reeves had seated in his seat in first class, walked among the first, holding his small bag in his hand. His posture remained confident, but his eyes shone with deep gratitude for the gesture Keanu had made for him. After all the passengers left the plane, the veteran was in for another surprise. At the gate, he was met by a small group of people, including representatives of military organizations. They learned about the incident on board thanks to passengers who posted the story on social media. The incident quickly went viral, and many people wanted to express their support for the veteran. Keanu himself stayed behind, avoiding the crowd. He wanted to remain invisible and give the veteran the opportunity to be in the spotlight. For him, it was not important that his act was noticed, but that the veteran was given the honor he deserved. He quietly watched as people surrounded the man, congratulated him, and thanked him for his service. Among the crowd were journalists trying to find out more about the story. The veteran was confused at first, but then began to talk about his life. His story was striking in its depth. He told how he joined the army at a young age, participated in several military operations, and lost many friends. However, his greatest achievement was saving the lives of his platoon during a dangerous mission, for which he received a military award. He also shared the difficulties that veterans face after returning to civilian life. These were not only physical injuries, but also psychological consequences of the war. His story resonated with many people who listened to it that day. People realized that behind every uniform and medal was a person with his own experiences and challenges. During these events, Keanu kept to himself. But when one of the journalists recognized him, all attention instantly turned to the actor. At first, he tried to avoid questions, but eventually said just a few words. "It was the least I could do. Heroes are those who give everything for the sake of others." His modesty impressed everyone even more. After this event, the veteran received many offers of help. He was offered a job in one of the organizations that support the military. In addition, a charity fund was set up to support veterans, which was donated by passengers and many other people who learned about this story. Keanu himself continued on his way, avoiding unnecessary attention. For him, This incident was another reminder of how important it is to help those in need. His simple gesture on board the airplane was the beginning of a chain reaction of kindness that has now impacted the lives of many people. The story that began with a small act on board the plane took on a life of its own. Social media exploded with videos and photos taken by passengers during the flight. People admired Keanu Reeves' gesture and the veteran's touching story. This story not only drew public attention to the problems of veterans, but also became a symbol of how one small act of kindness can have a huge impact. The veteran who was in the spotlight received more and more invitations for interviews. His story touched many people. In TV programs and articles, he talked not only about his service, but also about the importance of supporting the military after they return home. His words made many people think about the fact that the country often forgets about those who gave their health and strength to protect it. Meanwhile, a special event was organized in Los Angeles to honor the veteran. It was initiated by military organizations that wanted to thank him for his service and draw attention to the problems of veterans. The event was attended by many people, including other veterans, civic activists, journalists, and just concerned citizens. Keanu Reeves was also invited, but as usual, he stayed out of the spotlight. However, his presence did not go unnoticed. During the event, the veteran gave an emotional speech. He spoke about how he managed to survive the battles, about his comrades he lost, and about the moment on board the plane that changed his life. He emphasized that the kindness of a stranger made him feel that his sacrifices were not in vain. The audience burst into applause when he concluded his speech with the words, "We can all make a difference in the lives of others. Sometimes all it takes is a simple smile or an outstretched hand." The event was followed by a fundraising campaign to support veterans. Charitable foundations that had previously struggled to survive now received a flood of donations. People inspired by the story wanted to contribute. The organizers of the event announced that the funds raised would be used for rehabilitation programs, psychological support, and job creation for veterans. Keanu, who was watching from the audience, saw his small gesture turn into a powerful movement. He felt proud not for himself, but for the people who responded to this story. When journalists approached him for an interview, he said briefly, "This is not about me. This is about a person who deserves respect and support. I just did what I had to do." Meanwhile, the veteran, inspired by the attention to his story, decided to take action. He began working with charitable organizations, giving lectures and meeting with other veterans. His goal was to help those who felt forgotten and alone. His words and actions began to change the lives of many. One of his first projects was the creation of a veteran support center in Los Angeles. This center became a place where veterans could get not only psychological help, but also employment counseling, legal support, and even just a place to talk to someone who understands. For many, it became a lifeline. Keanu Reeves, having learned about this initiative, also made his contribution. He donated a significant amount of money for the construction of the center and even personally visited it during the opening. The veteran and Keanu met again, and their warm exchange of words became another symbol of this incredible story. The center quickly gained popularity. Veterans from all over the country began to use its services. For the first time in a long time, many of them felt that their pain and problems were finally being noticed. The veteran story became the driving force behind the creation of similar centers in other cities. The campaign, which began with the story on board the plane, gained international attention. Charitable organizations inspired by this story joined forces to create a global network of support for the military. People from different countries began to share their stories, and this generated a new wave of compassion and understanding. A year after the incident, a large charity concert in support of veterans was held on board an airplane in Los Angeles. The veteran who became the hero of this story took the stage with Keanu Reeves. Their performance was the culmination of the evening. Together, they reminded everyone that even in difficult circumstances, kindness and support can change the world. After the charity concert, which became the culmination of the campaign to support veterans, the story gained even more publicity. People from all over the world continued to learn about Keanu Reeves' act and the incredible strength of the veteran spirit. The veteran, who has now become a symbol of courage and endurance, used his new platform to make an even greater impact. After the concert, it was decided to expand the network of veteran support centers. Thanks to the efforts of many people and organizations, new centers were opened in several major U.S. cities, offering a wide range of services, from psychological assistance to training and retraining. The veteran personally attended each opening, sharing his story and inspiring others. However, he did not stop at charity. Realizing the importance of drawing attention to the problems of veterans, he began working on a documentary. Together with Keanu Reeves and well-known directors, this project was to tell the stories of military men who had gone through hardships and managed to find a new meaning in life. The film not only revealed the reality of veterans' lives, but also emphasized the importance of humanity and compassion. While filming the movie, the veteran visited the places where he once served. These trips were full of emotions and memories, but they also became a way for him to reconnect with the past and rethink it. Keanu accompanied him on some of the trips, offering his support and assistance. Their friendship became an example of how a simple gesture of kindness can bring people from very different worlds together. The documentary became a global phenomenon. It received positive reviews from critics and audiences, becoming an inspiration for many. After the film's premiere, even more funds were raised to support programs for veterans. Many people who watched the movie started volunteering or donating money to support those in need. The veteran also began working on a book describing not only his service and the difficulties he faced, but also the people who helped him along the way. The book became a bestseller, and its proceeds went to fund support centers. Keanu, who remained modest, continued to work behind the scenes. He helped organize events, attract sponsors, and support projects that arose from the story. For him, the most important thing was to see change happen for the better. A few years after the incident, another remarkable event took place on board an airplane in Los Angeles. The presentation of an award for contribution to the welfare of veterans. The veteran and Keanu were invited on stage together. They received a standing ovation, and their speech was the highlight of the evening. The veteran said, "This path was hard, but it showed me that even in the darkest times there is light. It's in the people who are willing to help." Keanu added, "This story is about each and every one of us. We can change the world, even if we start with the smallest steps. Don't be afraid to do good." The story, which began with a simple act on board an airplane, became an example of how kindness and humanity can change the lives of not only one person, but entire communities. It has become an inspiration for many, reminding us that each of us can make the world a better place.
Goodbye.